Arirang sold out 44 stadiums in 60 minutes. Why are US media calling Jungkook BTS's ultimate ticket-selling machine? What really happened in those 60 minutes? And why are American entertainment headlines suddenly circling one name with almost obsessive focus? When 44 stadium concerts vanish from the global ticketing map in just 1 hour, is it still just a comeback story? Or has BTS entered a completely new phase of power, one driven by a different gravitational force? In the early hours of January 25th, 2026, as fans across continents refreshed ticketing platforms with shaking hands, a simple post from @ThePopcore on X quietly detonated across the internet. 44 stadium dates. Sold out. 60 minutes. No gradual climb. No staggered sell-through. No regional lag. Just disappearance. For many artists, selling out one stadium is a career-defining moment. For BTS, 44 stadiums evaporated almost instantly, and more than half of them, 26, were located in the United States, the most competitive live music market in the world. But as the dust settled, a new question began to echo through US entertainment media, industry analysis columns, and late-night talk show monologues. Was this simply BTS being BTS? Or was there a single member whose pull had tipped the scale? Why? In nearly every American breakdown of the Arirang tour phenomenon, did the same name keep resurfacing? Jungkook. Why Jungkook? Why now? And why are analysts daring to suggest that BTS may have found a new center of gravity without ever losing their identity as Seven? The Arirang tour was already charged with symbolism before a single ticket went on sale. Named after Korea's most iconic folk song, Arirang was positioned as more than a concert series. It was framed as a cultural statement, a post-hiatus declaration, and a re-entry into the global arena after years of military service and enforced distance. Promotional images showed RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook dressed in sharp black and red styling, modern, restrained, and unmistakably deliberate. The message was subtle but firm. BTS was back, not chasing relevance, but reclaiming space. Yet even with that narrative power, few expected the sheer speed of the sellout. Within minutes, social media feeds filled with disbelief, screenshots of empty seating maps, and the same repeated phrase typed in dozens of languages: "It's gone." In Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Dallas, Atlanta, and beyond, American fans who had waited years were suddenly locked out, redirected to resale markets where prices exploded almost immediately. Industry watchers began to pull apart the data, and that is where Jungkook's name stopped being a fan talking point and started becoming an analytical one. In US media coverage, Jungkook was no longer discussed only as the youngest member of BTS or as a beloved vocalist. He was increasingly framed as a soloist who had already proven his ability to dominate Western charts independently. His English-language singles, viral performances, fashion partnerships, and constant presence in American pop culture had built something rare: familiarity without fatigue. To many casual US listeners, Jungkook was not just a member of BTS. He was the face they already recognized. American entertainment outlets began describing him with language usually reserved for blockbuster athletes and A-list movie stars. A conversion engine, a cross-market catalyst, and, in the phrase that spread fastest, a ticket-selling machine. The implication was provocative. Jungkook's personal brand had become so powerful in the United States that it lowered the barrier for non-army audiences to buy into the Arirang tour experience. Was this unfair to the other members? Or was it simply acknowledging a market reality that BTS themselves had strategically cultivated? The numbers, as US analysts pointed out, tell a story that cannot be ignored. 26 out of 44 sold-out stadiums were in the United States. This is not a marginal presence, it is dominance. And dominance at this scale requires more than loyalty from an existing fan base. It requires cultural penetration. Jungkook's solo era, with its emphasis on accessibility, genre fluidity, and visual impact, had quietly expanded BTS's reach far beyond traditional K-pop boundaries. When Arirang tickets went live, that expanded audience was already primed. But the most intriguing part of the conversation is not whether Jungkook is influential. That has long been established. The real question emerging in US media is more delicate and more fascinating. Can a group remain structurally equal while one member becomes the primary market driver in certain regions? For BTS, this question is not theoretical. It is operational. Historically, BTS's strength has been their balance. RM's leadership and lyrical authority, Jin's global appeal and emotional resonance, Suga's production genius, J-Hope's performance command, Jimin's artistry and elegance. These magnetic individuality and Jungkook's all-rounder excellence have functioned like interlocking gears. No single component was meant to overpower the system. Yet markets are not sentimental, and the American market, in particular, rewards recognizability and narrative simplicity. Due to this, entertainment media thrives on anchors, faces, entry points, and Jungkook has become that entry point for millions. This does not mean Arirang sold out because of Jungkook alone. That argument collapses under even minimal scrutiny. BTS's collective legacy, their discography, their emotional bond with ARMY, and their historic role as cultural ambassadors remain the foundation. But what US media is suggesting, sometimes explicitly, sometimes between the lines, is that Jungkook functioned as the accelerant. The spark that turned anticipation into immediate action. Consider the timing. Jungkook's solo visibility in the United States peaked at precisely the moment Arirang ticket sales were announced. His fashion appearances, brand endorsements, and viral moments kept his name circulating in mainstream American entertainment spaces that rarely cover K-pop in depth. When those audiences saw BTS Arirang tour, they did not see an unfamiliar group returning after hiatus. They saw a live chance to experience the artists they already knew, plus 6 others whose reputation promised something even bigger. This is where the concept of a center of gravity enters the discussion. In physics, a center of gravity does not negate the existence of other forces. It simply describes the point around which mass organizes. US analysts are increasingly asking whether Jungkook has become that point in Western markets, especially for live events. The question is uncomfortable because it challenges long-held narratives about BTS's internal dynamics. But it is also a testament to how far they have come. Few groups in music history have reached a stage where individual members can independently command massive markets while still contributing to a collective that sells out stadiums in under an hour. The Arirang tour's success has also reignited conversations about scale. Selling out 44 stadiums is not just impressive, it is historically rare. Doing so across multiple continents in a single sales window places BTS in a category occupied by only a handful of global acts. That they are the only Asian group to achieve this at such speed is not lost on American commentators, many of whom are now framing BTS less as a genre act and more as a permanent fixture of the global touring elite. Yet the emotional core of this story remains with the fans. ARMY reactions flooded timelines, not just with celebration, but with disbelief, frustration, and longing. Many US fans who had waited through hiatus, enlistment updates, and years of uncertainty found themselves shut out in minutes. The speed of the sellout became its own emotional narrative, joy intertwined with loss, pride mixed with anxiety about access, and looming over all of it is the next question that no official announcement has yet answered. If Arirang could sell out 44 stadiums in 60 minutes, what happens next? Will additional dates be added? Will Asia, Southeast Asia, and Latin America see the same explosive demand? For Indonesian ARMY in particular, hope is rising alongside impatience. The reference post from @ThePopCore hinted at a tour that would span Asia, Latin America, Japan, Australia, the Middle East, and beyond throughout 2026. Each region is now watching closely, aware that the clock may move just as fast when their turn arrives. Back in the United States, the media narrative continues to evolve. Headlines speculate, analysts debate, and fans dissect every phrase. Is Jungkook truly the machine behind the numbers, or is he simply the most visible symbol of a collective force that has matured into something unstoppable? And if BTS does have a new center of gravity in certain markets, is that a risk, or is it the natural evolution of a group that has never stood still? One thing is clear. The Arirang tour is no longer just a comeback. It is a case study in global branding, in cultural reach, in how individual stardom and group identity can coexist at the highest level. As US media continues to scrutinize Jungkook's role in this historic sellout, the larger story remains unresolved, suspended between data and emotion, strategy and passion. 60 minutes changed the conversation. 44 stadiums changed the stakes. And as BTS prepares to step back onto the world's biggest stages, one question lingers, unanswered but impossible to ignore. Is this still the era of 7 equally pulling forces? Or has the world quietly chosen its focal point, without ever letting go of the whole? And that unanswered question is precisely what keeps American media hooked, because Arirang is no longer being discussed merely as a tour, but as a mirror reflecting how global pop power now works. In editorial rooms from Los Angeles to New York, the conversation has shifted from how fast did BTS sell out, to what does this speed tell us about who moves the market right now? The 60-minute sellout window has become a kind of stopwatch experiment, replayed and dissected from every angle, and Jungkook's shadow keeps appearing in the frame, not as an accident, but as a pattern. In the United States, live music is a ruthless ecosystem. Stadium tours live or die not on fan loyalty alone, but on scale, logistics, and mainstream penetration. American analysts point out that selling out 26 stadiums in one country requires a rare overlap of audiences: hardcore fans, casual listeners, fashion followers, viral culture spectators, and even first-time concertgoers who simply do not want to miss the event everyone is talking about. Jungkook's name, according to several entertainment columns, sits at the crossroads of all those groups. He is streamed by pop listeners who do not follow K-pop. He is recognized by fashion audiences who may never have watched a BTS documentary. He trends on platforms where music is only part of the conversation. When Arirang tickets went live, those overlapping circles collapsed into one decision: buy now or be locked out. This is why the phrase ticket selling machine has gained traction in US headlines. It is provocative, almost industrial, and that is exactly why it spreads. American media loves language that turns artists into forces of nature or mechanisms of impact. Yet beneath the sensationalism, there is a more nuanced acknowledgement taking place. Jungkook is not being credited with replacing BTS's collective power, but with amplifying it at the precise point where the US market demands clarity and immediacy. The idea of a center of gravity has sparked even more debate. Some commentators argue that every globally dominant group eventually develops regional focal points, members whose appeal aligns more directly with certain markets. Others caution against oversimplifying BTS's dynamic, reminding audiences that Arirang symbolism, rooted in Korean identity and shared history, would lose meaning if reduced to a single face. But even these cautionary voices concede one thing: in the American market, Jungkook functions as a gravitational anchor, pulling attention inward before the full weight of BTS's 7-member legacy takes over. What makes this moment emotionally charged is the timing. Arirang is not just another tour announcement. It is the return. After years defined by military service, solo projects, and careful patience, BTS's reemergence was always going to be scrutinized. The speed of the sellout transformed that scrutiny into awe, and awe into expectation. If this is what happens in 1 hour, what happens when the tour actually begins? What happens when the lights go down, the first note hits, and the 7 members step onto a stage designed to hold tens of thousands of people at once? American outlets have already begun speculating about the cultural ripple effects. Will Arirang redefine how Asian acts are positioned in US touring hierarchies? Will it pressure promoters to rethink stadium allocations for non-Western artists? And perhaps most controversially, will it reset how individual members of global groups are marketed in different regions? Jungkook's perceived role in the Arirang sellout has reopened conversations that the industry has long avoided, about individuality within collectives and how global branding adapts without fracturing identity. Fans, meanwhile, experience all of this at a different frequency. For ARMY, the data is personal. Every sold-out stadium represents not just success, but separation. those who got tickets and those who did not. In the United States, stories emerged almost immediately of fans refreshing pages for an hour only to watch prices skyrocket on resale platforms seconds later. Some cried. Some laughed in disbelief. Some simply stared